Well, good afternoon. At least it is right now where I am doing this meeting. And I want to talk to you, lecture to you from Chapter 8 of the Speaker's Primer. And this is about research and preparation. It talks about informational literacy. We need to develop the ability, especially in the 21st century, of navigating through a colossal amount of visual and verbal stimuli. And we need to become critical consumers of that information, that stimuli that comes into our daily lives, non-stop virtually. And that's something we need to learn. Some characteristics of information literacy, as the book puts it. Know why you want certain information for your speech. What is it this information is going to do for the speech? And that's an important thing to know. Know where to get the information you seek. You need to know how to do research. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Know how to assess the quality of the information you're getting, especially if it's from the internet. The internet is one of the easiest things to be misused that you can find. It's really funny. Someone had done a link where they linked some radical group to the Black Lives Matter website. And they were doing it as a way to sort of discredit that movement to some degree. And my son, who was a smart young man, basically went on and someone was asserting that the Black Lives Matter movement had some bad backgrounds or whatever. And he said, well, do you know how easy that is to do? He said, in the last 10 minutes, I started a website and linked it to the Republican site called White Supremacy is Great, or something to that effect. And he actually did do it. He actually did that and connected it to the Republican site to demonstrate that because one site links to another site doesn't mean that the site that it's linking to asks it to or wants it to or is even a part of it in any way. So we have to become, especially with internet, critical consumers of information and know the quality of it. One of the things we can do as we bring together information from different sources, we can create what you might call new knowledge, new ways of thinking about something in people's heads. We have to be accountable for our use of information. We use it in a misleading way, an inaccurate way, it becomes problematic. There are assertions made about political candidates, both true and false, and some of the assertions are very simple, very easy to look into and to assess the quality of that assertion, to find out whether it's true or false. And unfortunately, we don't always do our homework. Some types of information you might do research on, background information. You might look for unique information about something. You might look for, and of course, especially on your persuasive speech, evidentiary information. Some places to do your research. The book talks, number one, it mentions the library. And of course, you may use the library, that'd be great. But I know for a fact, a lot of you will use the internet. And that's okay too, you can use that. I will tell you this though. One of the fastest ways to do your research on any speech is go to the library, find a librarian, and say, hey, I'd like to find some information on this topic. I had a young man come to class one day, and he said to me, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, I feel really stupid. I said, well, why do you feel stupid? He said, well, you told us that one of the fastest ways to do research is go to the library and ask for help. I did. He said, well, I looked online for a while, didn't get very far. I went to the library for a couple hours, didn't get very far. Finally, I remembered what you said. He said, I went to the librarian, and he said, this is exactly what happened. He said, I went to the librarian, and 30 minutes later, I walked out of the library with more research than I could use in a 5-hour speech, let alone a 5-minute speech. He said, I just started thinking, well, if I just listened to you in the first place, it would have taken me a lot less time. So you have to understand a lot of internet sites contain biases. If you're searching for information online, you might use proper search terms, use ands that will connect things. You can use minuses or nots that if you want to eliminate certain things from showing up. You can do interviews with people. You can do peer testimony or expert testimony or lay testimony or prestige testimony. Prestige testimony is Michael Jordan recommending a certain underwear. Michael Jordan does not have a doctorate in underwearology, so that's just prestige testimony. Expert testimony is, well, Dr. somebody, Dr. Say Larry Pritchett, I don't have my doctorate, but this is an example. Dr. Tim Wilson, leading neurosurgeon at Boston Medical University, says, and whatever he or she, if it's a woman, might say. Peer testimony, hey, you know what? Our friend Susan, who's sitting over in class, she says this. Now, Susan saying it and Susan agreeing with you will not necessarily prove that what you're saying is true, but it lends a certain credibility to it because after all, we know the person sitting there. Going forward now into this chapter, you want to document your research. Some ways to do that: place your notes on paper, keep a notebook, keep a bibliography so you know where every piece of information you received came from. The book talks about the fact you can use MLA, APA, or you can use, I think the last third one is called CMS. And what I tell my students is this: what I want for class is, I call it IDK. No, IDC, pardon me, IDC, which means I don't care. Pick one of them, use one of them, try to use it as carefully as you can. That's fine because other teachers are going to want something more specific, but try to use that. And I'm not going, I will look at I want it to match. I want it to all work together and fit. I don't want it to, one source to another, not match up the way it should. During your speech now, you've done your research. One of the most important things that you can do, we mentioned this a minute ago, Dr. whatever it was I said, leading neurosurgeon at Boston Medical University. You want to do oral citations during your speech. Oral citations during the speech. That adds credibility to what it is you're saying. And that is the end. I believe I said that was chapter 8 of the speaker's primer. And that's the one on research and preparation. Chapter 8.